name is Juan Ortiz-Apuy. I'm an artist. I was born in Costa Rica, but I've lived in Canada, in Montreal, more than anywhere else since 2003. Right now we're at Owens Art Gallery. I have an installation called Fountain Mist. I would describe Fountain Mist as a mixed media installation. I would say one of the important things about the installation, I think, is that the logic that I used for putting it together, I was interested in this idea of stock. There's like stock photography, so you find stock databases, mostly for designers, where you just buy images for advertising, for posters. So I was interested in this idea of finding images and the language of advertising and creating an exhibition with that. So everything in the show is done using either stock images or stock objects. Stock for me represents this idea of mass production, of something that is like equally reproduced, like ad infinitum, so like constant replicas of each other. So for example, the bottles are mostly very inexpensive generic bottles that you would find at dollar stores. And I picked them because of their design and because of their color, also because of the way that they kind of like insinuate certain forms. And then at the most basic level, I think that they're like beautiful aesthetic objects. Basically all the bottles are paired with another objects. So I was making those kind of juxtapositions based in color, like on this very clearly, but also based on form. So for example, this bonsai tree, I pair it with this green bottle, not only obviously because of the color, but the way the bottle has that sort of like sinuating sort of curve that the tree also kind of has, and the tree is this kind of like bulbous sort of organic form that kind of mimics, or those kind of mimic the tree, the 3D printed sculptures that you find on the platform as well. So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in this idea of mimesis, or this idea of, more than anything, sympathetic magic. This idea of something sort of drawing power from something else by means of likeness, or means of like imitation, or copying or representation. And I think advertising does that all the time. That's the way that a bottle is sort of like like a shampoo bottle, for example, is infused with a certain kind of power and aura. So advertising and design is constantly doing that. It's constantly referencing a lot of nature, but it referencing also human beings, and it has like a lot of anthropomorphic sort of references in design to infuse it with like human qualities as well. There are two 3D printed sculptures. These are made with, again, stock objects. You can find virtual objects online. There are databases with like thousands, probably millions of objects that if you had a 3D printer, you can just download and print yourself. And then I use a software that allows me to like mesh all these objects together to create like a virtual collage, 3D virtual collage in a way, and then I had these printed in nylon. This collage, I guess in a way is a digital collage, because as I mentioned, all the images are sourced from stock databases. So I basically downloaded each one of the individual images and made compositions with them. This one is called Spring Fauna. All the titles, they're borrowed from titles of products, sometimes of paint colors, like the exhibition is called Fountain Mist, which is the name of a paint. But it could also be the name of a product, like Fountain Mist could also be, I don't know, like a humidifier, or it could also be like a kind of perfume. So as I was mentioning, this idea of mimesis or sympathetic magic that you would find in nature itself, obviously, like that's an insect replicating a leaf in the way that that bottle is trying to replicate the bird. So this gesture that the hand is making, I feel like it's even kind of like echoed in the rest of the exhibition. There's constant effort or constant gesture of displaying things or displaying objects. And again, it's drawing from the language of product display, but even the vinyl on the back wall has that sort of like same design that kind of looks like a hand, and then there are like orange spring clamps holding up the IKEA furniture that, yeah, it's this constant gesture of like holding something up or propping something up or like pinching something. So it's, yeah, to follow that language of like how to display things, how to display objects through like images, or how to display them through like platforms, or present them to the viewer or to somebody. One of the things that I wanted to mention, which I feel like I kind of lied before, but I said all the objects were found and stock. There are only two exceptions, which are the two sort of artifacts or small figurines. These are actually about 400 years old. And these are, talismans, you would call them. And these are from the region that I grew up in Costa Rica. So I think the one at the bottom is 450 years old, and that one is 400 years old. And I like this idea, because I'm interested in commodity fetishism, and I like this idea of like different kinds of commodity fetishism. Like I sometimes imagine that if you, say, dig up an iPhone in 400 years from now, if it would be seen as that it had the same kind of influence and power over people as these objects might have had over another culture 400 years ago. And I feel like we have that relationship with material culture. Like we do believe that these objects carry a power and carry certain kind of influence over us, but we don't usually acknowledge that in those terms as power or as magic. So that's some of the things that the installation is trying to pursue, is like looking at objects from that specific lens.